Picture this. Every night while a country sleeps, money goes missing. Not from one account, from all of them at once. A few cents off the cash in your wallet. A sliver off the savings in the bank. A shaving from every pension, every paycheck, every dollar in the nation. By morning, it's gone. No broken window, no alarm. No suspect on camera. The perfect crime, except there's no getaway car and no mask. The money never left the building. It left your dollar. Each one in your pocket buys a little less than it did the day before. What vanished wasn't the cash, it was what the cash could do. And if you follow the fingerprints, they lead somewhere you'd never think to look. We talk about inflation like it's a thief in the night, a villain the government is hunting down. But what most people don't see is that the office running the manhunt is also the one holding the loot. Inflation isn't a crime committed against the state. It's a quiet transfer that works in the state's favor. Because the biggest borrower in human history pays you back in dollars worth less than the ones it borrowed. The thief and the police are the same desk, so the money that disappears from your wallet each night was never stolen and hidden away. It was moved. From the people who save to the institution that spends. Before we go any further, let's be clear. When most people imagine inflation, they picture an accident. Prices rising on their own. A fever the government is desperately trying to break. That picture is wrong. A mild, steady inflation isn't the disease. For a government buried in debt, it's the cure. And here is the proof on the record. After World War II, the United States owed more than its entire economy produced in a year. A debt above 100% of everything the country made. It never paid that mountain down the honest way. Between 1945 and 1980, the government quietly liquidated that debt through inflation and deliberately low interest rates, draining 3 to 4% of GDP out of its own bondholders every single year for decades. Real interest rates were negative roughly half of that entire stretch. The result was a debt larger than the whole economy, cut by a third in a single decade. Not repaid, but eroded. And the thief left no fingerprints because the thief writes the laws. So here is the real story of inflation. Not an enemy the government fights, but a tool it can't afford to lose. Let me show you exactly how the machine works cent by cent, dollar by dollar. Hey, it's CJ, the creator of this channel. If you want to make automated videos like this, topic2video.com will do it all for you. You don't need a camera, script, or microphone. All you need is an idea. The visuals, voiceover, and script are all generated automatically. Try it free today at topic2video.com. Back to the video. Inflation is not weather. It doesn't fall on everyone equally. Every dollar of inflation has two sides, a loser and a winner. The loser is whoever holds money or holds a promise to be paid money later. Savers, retirees on a fixed income, anyone who lent at a fixed rate. The winner is whoever owes money, and the single largest debtor that has ever existed is the government. So the moment your dollar loses value, the government's debt loses value too, in exactly the direction the government wants. This is not new, and it isn't modern. It's the oldest trick in the history of states. Rome did it with metal. The Roman denarius began as a coin of more than 90% silver. But emperors had armies to pay and monuments to build they couldn't afford. So they called in the coins, melted them down, and mixed in cheaper metal, a little less silver each time. By the year 300, the silver content had collapsed to around 5%. Same coin in your hand, a fraction of the real value inside it. Rome had no printing press and no bond market, so it shrank the metal directly. But the principle is identical to ours. When a government spends more than it collects, it has only three choices: tax you, borrow, or quietly shrink the value of the money in your hand. And the third is the only tax nobody ever votes on. The goal of the world's biggest central banks is not zero inflation. It is 2%. The US Federal Reserve has it in writing. Their Federal Open Market Committee, the group that sets American monetary policy, officially states that 2% inflation over the long run is most consistent with their goals of maximum employment and stable prices. The Bank of England operates under a 2% inflation target set by the UK government. The European Central Bank, which manages the euro across 19 countries, also targets 2%. Check this out. 3 of the most powerful financial institutions on Earth, covering hundreds of millions of people, have independently landed on the same number. Not 0, not 1, 2%. That is not a coincidence. It is a considered, deliberate policy choice, and they defend it openly. So the real question is not whether they are aiming for inflation. They clearly are. The question is why. The first reason is about tools. When the economy slows down, central banks cut interest rates to encourage borrowing and spending. But here is the problem. You cannot cut interest rates below 0, at least not in any meaningful, sustained way. If inflation is already near 0, there is almost no room to cut before you hit that floor. A small positive inflation rate gives central banks a buffer, a little space to maneuver when they need to respond to a recession. Think of it like driving on a mountain road. You want a guardrail on your side. 0 inflation removes the guardrail. The second reason is about wages. In the real world, employers almost never cut workers' pay in dollar terms. It creates resentment and people quit. But if inflation is running at 2% and your pay stays flat, your employer has quietly reduced your real costs without ever changing your paycheck. This gives businesses a way to adjust without layoffs, which keeps unemployment lower. Economists call this nominal wage rigidity, meaning wages are sticky in dollar terms and a little inflation helps the system work around it smoothly. The third reason is about expectations. When households and businesses believe prices will rise slowly and predictably, they plan accordingly. They invest, they spend, they hire. Stable, low inflation anchors those expectations. An inflation rate of 0 sounds ideal in theory, but in practice it sits dangerously close to something far worse. Deflation is what happens when prices fall instead of rise. And on the surface, that sounds great. Things get cheaper. What is the problem? The problem is what falling prices do to behavior. If you expect a car to cost less next month than it does today, you wait. If you expect it to cost even less the month after that, you wait longer. Multiply that logic across an entire economy, across millions of people deciding to delay spending, and businesses start losing revenue. They cut staff, workers spend less, businesses cut more staff. The whole cycle feeds itself downward. That's crazy. Japan spent most of the 1990s and 2000s trapped in exactly this cycle. Prices fell, people delayed spending, growth stalled, and no matter how aggressively the Bank of Japan cut interest rates, they could not break the loop. It became known as Japan's lost decade. Except it lasted closer to 2. Deflation also makes debt more painful. If you borrowed $50,000 and prices fall, the real value of what you owe goes up even as your income shrinks. Businesses and families become unable to repay loans. Banks tighten credit. Investment dries up. The ECB explicitly describes its 2% target as providing a safety margin against the risk of deflation. 2% keeps the economy far enough from that edge that a single bad quarter does not send prices into a spiral. None of this means inflation is free. It has a real cost and ordinary people pay it. If your wages rise at the same pace as inflation, you roughly break even. But wages do not always keep up. During stretches of high inflation, like in 2022, when the US inflation rate hit 8.3%, near a 40-year high, the gap between rising prices and stagnant wages wiped out real purchasing power for millions of households. People were earning the same dollars, but those dollars bought less food, less gas, less of everything. Savers feel it too. Money sitting in a low-interest savings account loses value quietly, year by year. If inflation runs at 2% and your savings account pays 0.5%, you are falling behind in real terms, even when nothing dramatic is happening. That's crazy, right? You can do everything right, work hard, save carefully, and inflation still erodes what you have built, slowly and without announcement. This is the trade-off that policymakers have made. They accept that a 2% inflation rate will gradually reduce the purchasing power of money. They believe that is a worthwhile cost because the alternative, zero inflation, or worse, deflation, creates bigger risks for the broader economy. It is not that they do not care about savers. It is that they have decided stability for the whole system matters more than protecting the value of cash. So here is the answer to the question this video started with. Governments and central banks will not eliminate inflation because they do not want to. Not because they are corrupt or indifferent, but because modern economic policy is built around using a small, stable inflation rate as a management tool. It preserves their ability to respond to recessions. It keeps wages flexible without requiring painful cuts. It keeps the economy far enough from deflation that one bad year does not become a decade-long trap. The debate that actually matters is not inflation versus no inflation. That debate was settled long ago when central banks around the world converged on the 2% target. The debates that matter now are how much inflation, who absorbs the cost, and whether wages and savings keep pace. For ordinary people, the practical lesson is this: holding cash is a guaranteed slow loss. The system is not designed to reward people who sit on their money. Understanding that is not cynicism, it is clarity. The same institutions that publish their 2% targets in public documents are telling you plainly that your money will be worth a little less each year by design. What you do with that information is up to you. If you're starting from scratch, a high-yield savings account never hurt nobody. You won't get rich, but it's far better than a regular savings account, or far worse, no savings at all. More detailed advice may come in the next video, but at least now you know inflation is not an accident. Hey, it's CJ before you go. Did you know most business owners don't fail because they have a bad product? They fail because they don't get the word out to enough people letting them know about their business. If you're a business owner, topic2video.com is for you. Just upload your company's branded materials, storefront, lobby, and staff, and my platform will generate a marketing video with your identity embedded in. You can then post the video to Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, your website, and more. It takes 2 minutes to get started. Go to topic2video.com now. I'll see you in the next one.